Hey, how's it going guys? Jack and Matt here with the Toaster Bros, and today we're going to be doing the ultimate RTX 3080 PC.
You heard that right. We have ourselves here an RTX 3080, and your sub boxes are probably flooded with reviews, but you know what? We wanted to bring you all a PC build, because that's what we do best.
And also a drop test.
Whoa! But before we do that drop test, let's hear a word from today's sponsor. Today's video is brought to you by, wait for it, GVGMall, an online marketplace to gain access to some really awesome discounted game keys, and more specifically, Windows 10 licenses.
So if you use the links in the description down below and type in code TB20 at checkout, you will get 20% off of your purchase. And activating Windows is as easy as actually buying the key. You literally just copy and paste it, and then boom, your Windows is activated.
Thanks again to GVGMall for sponsoring today's video. Be sure to use the link in the description down below and TB20 at checkout. Now, let's go ahead and get into this video, shall we? All right, guys, so as you can tell, we have the brand new RTX 3080 sent from NVIDIA. Special thanks again for them sending over the RTX 3080 and helping us out. We're gonna be doing a super high-end build featuring some really high-end parts. And yeah, the price point's a little over $2,000. And for $2,000, I mean, you're getting a ton of performance given this really awesome new graphics card from NVIDIA. So how about go ahead and talk about each individual part and then unbox this graphics card and take a look at it. I'm excited.
So first up, as always, we have the processor. This is the beloved Ryzen 9 3950X. This is a 16-core, 32-threaded processor, and honestly, this thing absolutely rips in editing, gaming, streaming, I mean, like anything. You could do all three at once. I mean, unlimited possibilities with all these cores. So obviously, when you have something awesome like this, you want to cool it well. So for my friends over at Zadak, we have the Spark AIO. This is a really awesome 240mm ARGB liquid cooler, and honestly, this thing looks really cool. It has a kind of like a robotic scheme going on there, and I expect this to keep our 3950X icy cold. Just like the 3080 in this video, which will be out by the time this releases, this is not quite out yet. It should be out in like sometime in October. So worst case scenario, we'll have links in the description down below to some alternate suggestions that we have for you. For the motherboard, from our friends over at Asus, this is the ROG Strix Crosshair 8 Hero Wi-Fi motherboard. It's a handful, and honestly, this thing is heavy. Like, it is going to be a very high-end board, and by the price point, it is very high. It's an X570, of course, and obviously it's gonna support this processor and our new graphics card out of the box. For the RAM, we decided to go with our friends Corsair. This is DDR4, 32 gigs at 3600 megahertz, and it's RGB. This is the Vengeance RGB Pro. This is really good stuff. It always overclocks perfectly, so we don't expect any issues with it.
And now for storage, we have our favorite Crucial P1 SSD. This is a 1TB NVMe SSD. We didn't opt for Gen 4 because, well, we just wanted to save some money. But if you do want to go with a Gen 4 SSD, it would work perfectly in this X570 board. But we definitely wanted to save some of that Gen 4 bandwidth for this beautiful graphics card that we have right here, which I think I need to get a knife to open it up. Okay guys, here it is, the beautiful RTX 3080, which I am trying to open as cleanly as possible. Ooh. 10 gigs of VRAM, all the performance, faster than a 2080 Ti. We don't really know specifically what kind of performance we're gonna get because we have not tested it. This is our first unboxing, but look at it right there in all its glory with that custom cooler. God, this thing feels well built. So the way this cooler works is we have this beautiful fan right here, and also this fan right here. One is intake, one is exhaust, and it goes across all the fins. It looks like we actually have the new power connector. I didn't know this was confirmed or not, but we do have the new power connector, which is just a single 12 pin, which
diagonal.
Is very interesting on these reference cards. So I'm assuming it's gonna come with an adapter in the box, which we'll go ahead and check real quick. We'll hope
great
so,
if it didn't,
because we had no idea. So I'm assuming there probably would be some sort of adapter. Ah, it does come with an adapter. So we have this connector in the box, which takes two 8-pins and moves it to this little 12-pin connector. It is braided, looks nice. Good thing they didn't go cheap with this. But yeah, it's kind of interesting how this plugs in on the side right here. So we just go like so, boop. And boom, there's the new connector. So, I mean, new power supplies will eventually have this connector on board, but for now, if you have an older system, I mean, older, quote unquote, this is pretty new, you can go with these two 8-pins and you have a working system here. So, I mean, hey, very excited to use this and see what kind of performance we can get, and we're gonna do a lot of benchmarks with this graphics card. And speaking of power supply, we have this Superflower LED-X 3 power supply, which is an 80+ gold power supply. It is 750 watts, I believe. Yeah, 750 watts. Now, Superflower is a company that's been very popular overseas and just recently started selling their power supplies on Amazon. So they are a very reliable company when it comes to power supply units, have a really high rep out there. And we decided to give this one a shot because, well, we needed something that was high wattage, high efficiency for this RTX 3080, and 750 watts should be enough. It is the recommended spec for this sort of system. So we're gonna go go ahead and give it a shot. And last but certainly not least, this is the Masterbox TD500 from Cooler Master with this mesh front, 3 RGB fans, tempered glass with a cool like etching in the tempered glass. It's a $100 case with 3 RGB fans. It's actually pretty budget friendly. The really only budget friendly thing in this build, but we like to keep good value cases here at the Toasty Bros HQ. And this one right here is in white, so it's gonna look really nice with this PC build. And I'm very excited to put it together. I just don't wanna wait any longer. I wanna build it right now. Let's do it. Yeah.
right, ladies and gentlemen, now that we have this RTX 3080 PC all put together, let's talk about what you all here came for, some benchmarks. Now, we're not going to be as in-depth as some of the other reviewers out there because that's just not what we do. We focus on building gaming PCs and giving you all some general numbers. If you want some more in-depth reviews, we will definitely leave some suggestions down below once they start getting released. But in general, the RTX 3080 is an awesome graphics card and definitely worth the price tag. First up, we decided to test Shadow of the Tomb Raider on the highest settings at 1440p, and we were averaging around 136 FPS. Keep in mind, all the testing we did was done at max settings at 1440p, and if you watched any of the videos here on the channel, you know Shadow of the Tomb Raider is one of the most demanding games we do test, and we have updated our suite recently thanks to NVIDIA. But Shadow of the Tomb Raider has always been hard on the highest settings for some of the higher end PCs we build, and in this situation, the RTX 3080 has no problems getting over 100 FPS, which is absolutely crazy, and honestly, it gets even better. Next up, we added a new game to our benchmarking rotation, Wolfenstein Young Blood. This is a great example of DLSS 2.0, which is basically the AI upscaling feature that NVIDIA offers to allow you to play games at 4K but not have the massive performance hit of 4K. Now, with the benchmarking we are doing, we are only playing at 1440p, so it's kind of hard for us to give a real-world scenario of how well DLSS 2.0 works, but even at 1440p, running the Wolfenstein Youngblood built-in benchmarks, we're averaging over 150 FPS. With DLSS off, we are getting less frames, so even if you are running a 1440p monitor, DLSS 2.0 looks great, and if you are using a game that does utilize it, which I hope in the future pretty much every game utilizes this awesome feature, you are going to get even more free performance out of your graphics card, and the 3080 really benefits from it. Even though it really doesn't need that much help in this game, if you're playing on, let's say, a 1440p 165Hz and you want to get closer to that 165 FPS mark, using DLSS 2.0 will be great. And the same goes for 4K 144Hz in the future if you do plan on upgrading to that standard whenever it comes around. Another new game we added to the benchmark rotation is Doom Eternal, and on max settings 1440p with Vulkan turned on, well, we got 200 plus FPS, sometimes into the 300s. I mean, you really can't get much better than that, running around in Doom, killing all the undead and having no problems whatsoever. Doing it on a high refresh rate monitor is absolutely an awesome experience. I have benchmarked a ton of PCs here on the channel, and I've had the most fun benchmarking this PC, and honestly, I've played way too many games on it. It's kind of been a time-consuming thing for me, but next up is a game we do test a lot, and that is Call of Duty Warzone. And on max settings at 1440p, we pretty much got over 130 FPS a majority of the time. Now, Warzone is one of those games you probably would run on optimized settings, just like some esports titles out there. So in most situations, you're probably not going to run on max settings, but getting over 100 plus FPS in Warzone on max settings, especially at 1440p, is really impressive. Now, this is the game we decided to test the power draw. Now, we weren't using that fancy new tool that NVIDIA has provided to reviewers. Unfortunately, we don't have access to that tool, but we do have a kilowatt reader, which will give the total system draw of the entire system. And playing games like Warzone, as you can see on screen right here, we were averaging a power draw anywhere between 480 to 520 watts, which is definitely high, but considering we're using the RTX 3080, 32 gigs of RAM, a bunch of RGB, we have the 3950X running basically full tilt, this wattage isn't that crazy, and it shows that a 750 watt power supply should be more than adequate for a system like this. If you want a little bit more headroom, or if you're going something like RTX 3090, probably going to want to opt for around 850 or maybe even 1000 watt. 1000 watt power supplies are not going to be that ridiculous nowadays if you do go for something like the 3090. So we'll be definitely waiting to see what kind of performance and power draw that will deliver. But the 3080 with the 3950X, I mean, it's a good pair, and it definitely does pull some power, but not as much as you might think. Next up is Fortnite, and you might be wondering, why would you test Fortnite with an RTX 3080? Well, one, people will comment if we don't, and two, there are two new features in Fortnite, DLSS 2.0 and ray tracing, which with ray tracing on, it looks great, not gonna lie, but does it make a whole lot of sense for a game like Fortnite in my opinion? Not really. Fortnite is a primarily esports title, so most people are running this game on epic view distance, everything else on low, and trying to get their frame rates as high as feasibly possible. But if you are using this feature and maybe you want to do like some machinima type content in Fortnite, which I know is a popular trend, you could get some really beautiful visuals using the ray tracing built in and DLSS 2.0 to make sure those frames don't drop a lot when you turn on ray tracing, because without DLSS on and running at 1440p with ray tracing, we were getting around 50-ish FPS, which is reminding me of the old days of ray tracing when it first came out and you were playing Battlefield 1 at, well, 30 FPS with ray tracing on. So definitely run DLSS 2.0. It's free performance and it looks very close to native 1440p, so it's definitely worth doing. But I mean, I can't complain. It looks very beautiful in Fortnite, and if you are someone who's in it for the visuals, then yeah, you can do that, but I really wouldn't recommend it for competitive players because you're going to lose a lot of frames from it, even with the RTX 3080. This game also does take advantage of NVIDIA Reflex, which is their system to reduce input lag from the entire system. So if you are a competitive gamer and you want to give that a shot, I don't have the proper tools to do testing, but this is a really cool implementation that is added to an esports title, and NVIDIA might be changing the game here and making games even more responsive than they already are. And the last game we tested, which is another new game, is Stranding. And on max settings, we averaged 150 plus FPS. This is another game that takes advantage of DLSS 2.0, and that definitely helped a lot, making this very beautiful game run well over 100 plus FPS at 1440p. Now, Stranding is a game I've never actually played, and now that I've launched it up with this RTX 3080, I definitely want to give it a shot because the visuals look absolutely great in person, but I can only imagine at 4K what a game like this would look like, especially all these other games with DLSS turned on. I bet it's going to look absolutely great. And that RTX 3080, man, it definitely did not disappoint. And for a $2,000 build, yes, we're normally budget bros, but for $2,000 with the 3950X and the RTX 3080, you're getting a ton of performance for the money. You could cut some corners and cut out all the RGB if you want to and make this closer to a $2,000 build because we're creeping a little bit over that right now. But I mean, for the price, I love this build. I love the temperatures of the new cooler. It really has no problems keeping around 70, 75 degrees Celsius, which is a little bit toasty, but it's kind of what we expect from reference coolers. If you are in the market for something that's not going to be super toasty, then definitely take a look at some of the cards from an Asus and EVGA and so on, which we'll most certainly use in a build here in the future, so stay subscribed for that. But overall, man, RTX 3080, I cannot complain. It's an awesome card for the money, and I'm very excited to see what the future holds for the other lineup of cards coming from NVIDIA, specifically the RTX 3060 or whatever that ends up being. we'll definitely be doing a video at that very soon. So now that we finished up this very extensive benchmarking section, how about we go ahead and bring Jackson back in here to wrap this video up real quick.
Alright guys, so as you can see, this PC, well, it performs quite well and honestly puts the Titan to shame in some games.
It's honestly a great value card. Yeah, of course, it's really expensive at $700, but for a $2,000 build, I mean, you're getting performance from probably like a $3,000 plus build just a few weeks ago when this stuff didn't exist. So, I mean, you're getting a lot of value here, and if you can get your hands on one, which is the key thing here, because it's gonna be really difficult to get one, whether it's a reference card or an aftermarket one from some of the vendors, which we'll most likely get our hands on, you're definitely not making a bad decision. I think this card will last you a long time, and this is a pretty big jump from NVIDIA.
And obviously, if you want to buy any of these parts, use the links in the description down below. They're affiliate links and they do help us. We'll try to keep the RTX card affiliate link up to date as much as we can, but like Matt said, we feel like it's probably going to be out of stock a lot, so good luck to you. So obviously you guys know we like Ryzen as well, so we did decide to go with the 3950X because it is just such a good processor for the price, but hey, if you wanted to, you could go, 10th gen i9 and maybe get a little bit more performance out of it.
And if you wanted to save some money, in some cases you might be able to get away with something like a 3700X or an i7. So if you want to make a more balanced build, maybe around the $1,500, $1,600, $1,700 price range, you could probably do that, but just know that this is a really powerful graphics card and it definitely would benefit from a better high-end CPU. If you're gonna pay $700 for a graphics card, you might as well pay close to that for your CPU.
So if you haven't already, don't forget to check out our other 2 YouTube channels and also our twitch.tv/toastybros. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And we'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.